What if one of the most controversial films ever made was never just a movie? What if Fight Club was actually a hidden psychological experiment disguised as entertainment? A cinematic anomaly that escaped the control of the very system that created it. In 1999, audiences walked into theaters expecting another dark thriller starring some of Hollywood's biggest names. What they discovered instead was something far more dangerous. A film that challenged consumerism, questioned identity, attacked modern masculinity, and whispered a forbidden question into the minds of millions of viewers around the world. The life you built, was it ever really yours? This is not just a story about underground fights, soap, or a man named Tyler Durden. This is a classified investigation into one of the most misunderstood films in cinema history. A movie surrounded by controversy, censorship debates, psychological discussions, and a strange journey from box office disappointment to cultural revolution. Because the truth behind Fight Club is far stranger than its plot. The production was chaotic. The studio feared the message. Executives didn't know how to sell it. Critics were divided. And years later, the movie became more influential than anyone involved could have predicted. But the most disturbing part of the file is not what happened during the filming. It is what happened after the film escaped into the world. Viewers began to see Tyler Durden not merely as a fictional character, but as a symbol, an idea, a rebellion against the invisible rules of modern society. The film entered universities, psychological discussions, internet communities, and philosophical debates about identity, alienation, consumer culture, and the crisis of meaning in the modern world. Some considered it a masterpiece. Others considered it a dangerous manifesto. And hidden behind the iconic quotes, the underground fights, and the mythology surrounding the movie, there is a secret history of creative conflicts, real injuries on set, controversial decisions, hidden messages, and a production process that almost destroyed the very film we know today. Tonight, we are opening the confidential archive. We are examining the evidence. And as we dig deeper into the forbidden files behind Fight Club, one question begins to emerge from the darkness. Was this simply a movie? Or was it a warning that society was never supposed to hear? Before we unlock the next confidential evidence, I need to know something. Has a movie ever changed the way you see reality? Has a story ever exposed a part of society that you could no longer ignore? A hidden mechanism behind everyday life that, once you noticed it, was impossible to forget? If Fight Club ever made you question consumer culture, identity, the system we live in, or the masks people wear every single day, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Every testimony, every theory, and every different perspective becomes another piece of evidence inside this investigation. And if you believe cinema is more than entertainment, if you believe some films leave messages hidden beneath the surface, support this investigation by leaving a like and subscribing to Shadow Reel. Because this channel exists to open the archives that others ignore, examine the stories behind the stories, and reveal the secrets hidden between the frames. The next file is waiting, and the evidence we are about to uncover may change the way you look at Fight Club forever. Now that the first evidence has been placed on the table, we can finally open the beginning of the file. And perhaps the first thing we need to understand about Fight Club is that this investigation did not start in 1999, when the movie exploded into theaters. The first traces of this anomaly appeared years earlier, hidden inside a novel that carried the same uncomfortable question that would later haunt an entire generation. What happens when a human being realizes that the life he is living was designed by someone else? The source of the file leads us to 1996, when author Chuck Palahniuk released the novel Fight Club, a dark and provocative work born from his own observations about modern society, alienation, consumer obsession, and the silent frustration of ordinary life. The book immediately attracted attention because it was not simply telling a story. It was attacking an idea. It was challenging the invisible architecture of a world where people were taught to define themselves by what they owned. The investigation then moves to Hollywood, where producer Laura Ziskin and the studio 20th Century Fox decided to transform this dangerous material into a film. But there was a problem. How could a major studio create a movie that openly criticized the very culture that helped sustain Hollywood itself? The answer came through director David Fincher, a filmmaker already known for exploring dark corners of the human mind through films like Say 7 Un, 1995, and The Game, 1997. Fincher did not see Fight Club as a simple adaptation. He saw it as a cinematic experiment, a psychological file waiting to be opened. To bring the story to life, Edward Norton was chosen to portray the unnamed narrator, a man trapped inside a mechanical existence, exhausted by corporate routines and a life filled with objects that could never satisfy his emptiness. Alongside him came Brad Pitt as Tyler Durden, the charismatic and chaotic manifestation of everything the narrator had repressed. Completing this forbidden triangle was Helena Bonham Carter as Marla Singer, a woman who existed outside society's expectations and became another fracture in the reality the narrator believed he understood. But behind the cameras, this secret investigation was already becoming unstable. The script, written by Jim Yules, underwent numerous discussions, controversial changes, and intense debates between the creative team and the executives who feared how audiences would react to such a disturbing message. This was not just another production. It was a battle between a system trying to control a message and artists trying to release it. And before we open the next evidence about the chaotic filming process, leave the word "awaken" in the comments if you believe that some movies are not merely entertainment. They are hidden files revealing uncomfortable truths waiting to be discovered. The next document inside this confidential archive reveals something that few people expected: the chaos, rebellion, and creative tension that existed behind the making of Fight Club were strangely similar to the conflict happening on the screen. It was almost as if the movie itself had absorbed the energy of its own message. A story about breaking rules was being created through a production that constantly challenged them. When filming began in 1998, under the direction of David Fincher, the atmosphere on set was far from ordinary. Fincher was known for his obsessive attention to detail, his perfectionism, and his willingness to shoot an enormous number of takes until he captured exactly the emotion he was searching for. Some scenes required dozens and even hundreds of attempts, pushing actors and crew into a process that was physically and mentally exhausting. Edward Norton fully embraced the psychological complexity of the narrator. His performance demanded that he portray a man who was simultaneously present and absent, someone slowly discovering that the greatest enemy hidden inside the investigation of his own reality was himself. To create this feeling of emotional collapse, Fincher encouraged a style of acting filled with discomfort, silence, and subtle expressions that made the audience feel like they were reading a secret file hidden inside the character's mind. Brad Pitt approached Tyler Durden in a completely different way. Before filming, he went through physical training to achieve the iconic lean and powerful appearance that became inseparable from the character. He also worked closely with Fincher to transform Tyler into more than a rebellious figure. He had to be charming enough to make the audience follow him, dangerous enough to make them fear him, and mysterious enough to make them question whether they were witnessing a person or an idea. One of the most famous incidents from the forbidden archives of the production happened during the filming of the scene in which Tyler teaches the narrator how to fight. The punch that Edward Norton receives in the ear was real. Fincher instructed Pitt to actually hit him, but without revealing the exact moment to Norton, capturing a genuine reaction of pain and surprise that remained in the final version of the film. The rebellion also existed in the visual language of the movie. Fincher and cinematographer Jeff Cronenweth created a dark, dirty, almost decaying aesthetic that reflected the psychological deterioration of the characters. The production used innovative digital effects, hidden visual clues, and subliminal appearances of Tyler Durden before the audience consciously realizes his presence, turning every rewatch into another layer of the investigation. But perhaps the most dangerous conflict was happening away from the cameras. Executives at 20th Century Fox were becoming increasingly nervous. The film was violent, philosophical, anti-consumerist, and impossible to market using traditional formulas. Meetings became tense. Questions emerged. Had the studio financed a masterpiece, or had it accidentally created a cinematic bomb capable of attacking the values of the very society that paid for it? And as we open the final document of this investigation, we will discover that the greatest controversy surrounding Fight Club did not happen during its creation. It happened after the movie was released into the world. If you have ever watched a film that stayed inside your mind for years, write the word evidence in the comments, because the last file we are about to unlock contains the most disturbing discovery of them all. The final document of this investigation takes us to the moment when Fight Club was finally released to the public on October 15, 1999. The file was now open. The experiment had escaped the laboratory, and what happened next became one of the strangest transformations in the history of modern cinema. At first, the evidence suggested failure. With a production budget estimated at around $63 million, the film did not achieve the massive box office success that 20th Century Fox expected. Many critics were divided. Some saw David Fincher's work as a brilliant psychological deconstruction of consumer society, identity, and the loneliness of modern existence. Others condemned it as dangerous, irresponsible, and potentially a glorification of violence. But the investigation could not be closed, because something unusual started happening in the shadows. As Fight Club reached home video, DVD collections, and the early internet communities of the 2000s, the movie began a second life that nobody had predicted. Viewers returned to the hidden files inside the story. They analyzed the symbolism. They searched for the subliminal appearances of Tyler Durden. They debated the meaning of the narrator's transformation. The movie was no longer simply being watched. It was being investigated. The performances of Edward Norton, Brad Pitt, and Helena Bonham Carter became legendary. The screenplay by Jim Ewells was reevaluated. The direction of David Fincher became recognized as one of the most ambitious and technically innovative works of his career. A movie that had once been considered a commercial disappointment was slowly transformed into a cultural phenomenon and one of the most discussed psychological thrillers ever created. But perhaps the most unsettling discovery hidden inside this archive is that Fight Club predicted a conflict that would become even more visible decades later. The struggle between personal identity and the systems that shape our desires, our opinions, and even our understanding of who we are. This is why the film continues to disturb audiences today. Not because of the fights, not because of the explosions, not because of Tyler Durden's famous speeches. It remains alive because it forces a forbidden question into our minds. How much of what we call ourselves was truly chosen by us? And maybe that is the reason this file could never be permanently locked. Because every generation discovers a new meaning inside it. Every viewer finds a different piece of evidence. Every return to the movie reveals another hidden message behind the frame. The investigation of Fight Club does not end with the final scene. It continues every time someone watches it, and begins to question the world around them. This was File 004 of the Movies That Changed Reality archive, a classified cinematic investigation into a film that started as a controversial experiment, survived rejection, escaped the expectations of its creators, and became a permanent signal hidden inside popular culture. The archive is now closed, but the evidence remains. If this investigation changed the way you see Fight Club, leave the phrase "the file is open" in the comments and become part of the Shadow Reel archive. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and join us as we continue unlocking the forbidden stories behind the films that changed reality. Next file loading.